G'day, g'day. I did mention previously that I would be happy to record my process the next time I attempt to create some clothing on IMVU. I say attempt because it doesn't always work out for me. Often I find myself giving up on a project that I've started, so fingers crossed that isn't the outcome for today. Now, I just want to start by giving you guys a disclaimer. I am not 3D modeling these assets. I'm utilizing existing meshes on the IMVU platform created by other creators. I use opacity maps and texture maps in order to create unique clothing items with those meshes. So I'm not actually teaching you guys how to 3D model today. I'll be teaching you how to use opacity maps and texture maps to create something unique. Now, I know I have a tendency to talk quite fast. Unfortunately, it's something that I always forget about when I'm recording or doing something of this nature. So I do apologize if this becomes a little bit inaudible. If you do have any questions and something doesn't make sense because of the way I speak or my slang or anything like that, don't be shy. Feel free to message me and I'm happy to go over anything and answer any questions. Alright, so pretty easy. Step one for me is always come up with the idea, find some visual inspiration if necessary, and basically just know what the hell you want to make. That'll make the process so much easier. It's really hard to sort of find the mesh first and then decide later. I find that my mind generally doesn't work like that, and it does need a kickstart to get things going. So my bulk account, which I'm working off today, has sort of exclusively been dealing with coquette style fashion. In that case, it made things really easy for me to choose something for this video. I just Google search of some coquette fashion, found something like a cute top with an overlay, and figured that this would be a nice product to put into the IMVU store. Once I have sufficient inspiration, which I've already collated here, and we'll have an idea of what I wish to create, I move on to step 2, which is finding the appropriate body mesh to work with. Things I tend to consider when selecting a body mesh is how large I want the chest to be, what type of sleeves I require, how it should fit on the body, and does this mesh have enough layers for me to accommodate all my ideas. Today, I've already predetermined that I'll be utilizing a mesh with a smaller chest and long sleeves, the C-size Gaia mesh by Polygon, so I'll get that one open. Step 3 will be gathering all necessary materials from the mesh. Typically, meshes will provide their UV unwraps and their textures created on the program in which they use to model the items. These are an awesome guide and starting point for the texture we want to create. The UV unwrap, which is also known as a wire map, will offer us assistance in creating our opacities, which help us reshape the existing mesh to actually fit our idea. I recommend downloading all of the UV unwraps as well as any available textures. Typically, you'll find that in the HTML description below the product on the Classic website. Just as a quick example of the items that I need you to download, firstly, we've got our actual maps here. So this is the UV unwrap that I was talking about, otherwise known as a wire map as well. This will be our guide, so make sure you download the front, the back, the sleeves, and any other wire maps there are available for the product. The other things I would recommend you download are any other actual textures that they've provided. So in this case, they've got the shading for the arms. They've also got shading for the front of the shirt. So this will just give us a bit of assistance in determining where the shadows are going to sit. Also gives you like a lovely base for any texture you create on top. Alright, so the next thing that we need to do is hit derive on the product that we're going to be creating on. Just going to open it in IMVU platform. I don't use the new studio. I know a lot of people do tend to use the new studio. I'm just more comfortable with the original desktop client, so that's the one that I'll be using today. Alright, so once you've got the actual product open in IMVU, I just put on a basic avatar just so I can see what it looks like with the aesthetic that I'm going for. Obviously, we're just working on a top today, so I'll throw on some pants as well. I'll probably use something that's a little bit more low-waisted. I also tend to keep into a specific color scheme for all of my clothing items, so wearing items that match the product that you're trying to make is very important. That way color matching is a lot easier as well. You'll also have to open up all of your textures that you have in the design program of your choice. So I've opened up Photoshop. I've got all 4 textures, both sleeves, front and back, to work with. So I typically open the texture first, then I'll go into my documents and I'll just slide the UV maps, the respective UV maps just on the top. So we've got that. That's for the front. If you set it to screen and then reduce the opacity, you'll be able to see the texture underneath a little better. I find this helps me when I'm drawing by opacity so I can actually see where I'm drawing it. So get everything else open in the same way that I have here, and then we'll continue after that. Now that I have everything open, the first thing that I like to establish is a basic opacity that I'm going to work with. So obviously this first opacity, it might look absolutely tragic by the time we actually implement it into IMVU, but it's a good basis to see what's going to work, what's not going to work. So for starters, now the first layer that's going to be available to me on this mesh is the outer layer. So I'm going to start by sort of sketching out where I want the little cardigan to go. So without further ado, I'm just going to zoom in a bit so I can see better. I'm just using a white pen so that I can start to create the opacity. So basically anything that is white is going to be opaque, and anything that is black is going to disappear. This is not the greatest quality, but this is just so we can get an idea of how this is going to look. We'll go back to our IMVU page where we've got this open. We're going to start by uploading the opacity only. So obviously it's going to be kind of like a big, bright, flat color, but this is just so we can see how it looks. So first of all, I'm going to go color-coded and pop all my opacities down. Okay, so we've got the front opacity. We don't need to turn blending on yet. We don't have anything for it to blend with. That is the right arm. Not that it matters because they're both the same at the moment. Left arm. And then the back is this bright blue color. So we'll throw that on there as well. And once you have all of those done, you just apply your changes. And there you have it. It does not look like how I want it at all. Well, it kind of does. It just said it doesn't sit off the body enough. So we're going to have to round it out a little bit at the front here to make some changes. But overall, the shape isn't too bad. Let me actually remove the hair and see how the back. So the back doesn't line up. You'll see between the blue and the aqua blue, they are not lining up properly. So that opacity needs to be fixed as well. Alright, so now that I know what's actually wrong with the mesh, I'm just going to basically go back through, tidy things up how I want to, and begin by adding a few other details. I do want to shorten the sleeves a bit, they're a tiny bit long, add a bit of lace here and there, maybe add a bow to the front. I am going to do this quietly. I might do a voiceover, I'm not sure, but if it just turns into some elevator music and me working at speed, that's why. So now that I'm pretty happy with how the opacity is actually turning out, it's time to bring it to life. So as you can see, we've got a little cute cardigan. I ended up just going ahead and creating a bit of a boob tube moment underneath. I figured the bra was bralette style was a little bit hard to execute when I'm attempting to put a 2D bow over the top, it's just going to look super chaotic and messy. So simpler is better for this one. Essentially all I do for this is I use the opacity as a base for the texture. I'll zoom out a little bit here. So I'll create a copy of the opacity that I made for the outer part first. We'll turn the original one off. I'm going to merge all those layers together and add a color overlay that's a bit darker, so like a sort of a soft grey. Once you've set the base color, it doesn't have to be the same grey that I have been using. You can do whatever. If you want to make it really dark grey, if you want to actually use a color, pink, purple, what have you, that's fine. This is just the way that I find it to be easier. Now that it is a color other than stark white though, we are able to overlay or soft light the texture that we downloaded earlier. So I'm going to pull that one up above what I've created and set it to soft light. And then instantly you can see that it's carving out where the chest is, and it's giving it a tiny bit of shading under the arms and on the sides as well. This is just a very basic beginning for what we're creating here. From this point onwards, it's up to you. So I typically create layers and layers and layers, set to overlay in black and white to start carving out a texture that looks a little bit more lifelike. I do also have special brushes that make knitted textures and things like that, just makes things a lot easier. You can typically find some cool brushes on Etsy. I'm not sure if Photoshop brushes work for every other design program, but I'm pretty sure they're quite universal as far as I know. I'll link in the description of the video a couple of the ones that I use because I find that they are extremely helpful. Once again, I'm going to resume my silence and just go ahead and start texturing the front of this cardigan. now that I've messed around with this texture for a while, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I think it's cute. I think it matches the aesthetic of other meshes that I've created. And I'm pretty confident in uploading this now as a derivable texture. So essentially, what I start by doing is I want to make an icon before I touch the upload button or try anything like that. So to take a high resolution screenshot of IMVU without any background, all you need to type in, even though there's no chat, you just type it in regardless. So it's asterisk high res no BG, and then hit enter, and that's going to take a picture. It's normally a big square around this size. Anything in that is going to be in the picture. I then use this to create an icon, which I'll quickly do off camera. Alright, so once you're completed with your product and you're happy with how everything looks, you're just going to save it. Feel free to save it somewhere on your actual computer if you like, but I typically just save it. I'm making this derivable anyway, so we can always go back to it. And then hit upload. Pretty simple process. You're just going to need a name, rating, how much profit margin you're wanting to make off this, throw in some keywords, which will just be items to describe your product. This is going to help somebody find this in the search engine on IMVU in the shop. In my case, I'm going to set mine as display only. I don't want people to purchase this. I just want other creators to derive from it. But obviously, if you're wanting people to actually purchase this product, you're going to leave that one unchecked. I want it to be visible in shop, allow derivation from my product, and then include in bundles isn't really necessary because they can't purchase it anyway. But if you are, like I said, selling this directly on the platform to people, you'll probably want to keep that one ticked so they can make outfits and stuff like that. It just means that if they make an outfit and your product's in it, you'll get some profit from the selling of that outfit as well. Alright, so once you hit submit to shop, it's going to open up a tab in whatever browser that you have as default. And the only last step that you have to make sure you click before anything else is click here to publish, and that's going to push your product into peer review. Once it's gone through peer review and it's been approved, it'll be available for derivation or in the shop for people to purchase. And that is it. That is how you make clothing using existing meshes on IMVU.